this computer. Okay, so any questions first of all? Any challenges or anything?
Uh, so far so good. It's nutrition today, isn't it?
Yeah, correct.
Cool. Yeah, that'll be good.
Yeah,
That'll be good.
yeah. All right. So we're doing basically. Mick wants some basic questions that can be answered, and today we're going to look at protein. And the questions that he wants are: what is protein? Where are they? So, what is protein? Why is it important in the body? And what are the ranges that we use? So we're just going to look at those
Yep.
three topics. Pretty straightforward, but it gives us a little bit of structure to go with. So I'll share my screen. So can you guys see? Josh is coming. Can you guys see a mind map?
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
awesome. Just wait for Josh to come online.
Joshua.
Yeah, there he is. There's the fro. Just
Yeah.
getting.
Oh, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, how's it going? How's it going?
Yeah,
Lucky.
I'm good, mate. I always have to have a little chuckle when I see you. I just wait for the fro to pop up on the screen.
Yeah, the iconic fur. Love it.
How's your week been going, mate?
Yeah, good. I did my first like back sessions today, so that was good. I did 3 sessions today.
Nice.
Um,
Oh, that's good.
so yeah, been going
How'd it
good so
how'd
far.
it
Yeah.
feel? Did you feel like you had good energy throughout all the sessions?
Second session. So I did my first session, then we had the team meeting, and then I had my second session. The
Mm-hmm.
second session, I felt a bit like energy was like not there that much. And then the third one, I picked it back up and I was like, all right, just get this one done, and then we're done, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, a little bit of a dip, but I feel like I handled it well to bring it back up.
Yeah, nice, mate. Nice. Yeah, it's funny. Like when you first get started, because everything like you want to do a good job and everything's a little bit foreign. Like you're concentrating hard. It's not necessarily natural. It can take the energy out of you.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
you see people doing like big 40 session weeks, and it can be intimidating to think about that. But in the same way as the body adapts to a training stimulus over time, and an individual can build work capacity with the training that they do, and do, in 3 months of training, they're doing workouts that there's no way they could have done at the start of that process. Even if you held a gun to their head and said, do the workout, there's no way they could do it. The body adapts. The same thing happens with PT, and you just get better at doing it, and you get into a flow, and you can punch out 7 sessions back to back. And you're like, fucking hell, that day has flown by, and I felt great the whole time. Then you'll have you get tired at the end of the day, but it becomes heaps easier, and the more you do it, the easier and the better it gets.
Yeah, I do notice just like a session, it just goes so quick already. Like that
Yeah.
3 or 4 hours of today just it felt like 2 hours, you know.
Yeah.
It does go quick.
It
So
goes. Yeah.
I guess because I'm enjoying it as well.
Yeah. Well, that's the most important thing.
Mm.
That is good, because the client knows when you're enjoying it. They feel that energy as well. That's good, man. Good to hear.
Yeah, I like to make it fun, you know, somewhat.
Yep. Yep. Me too. All right. So we're looking at protein, and so the questions they wanted answered was what is protein, why is it important in the body, and what are the ranges that we use. But before we get specifically into the macronutrient, I thought we should have a look at some big picture and some of the principles that I follow with nutrition design for general population for body recomposition. And I think this. So Mike Israetel has his hierarchy of nutritional success principles, and Eric Helms also does a similar thing. And so I've got a diagram here. Can you guys see a diagram?
No.
No, you still see the mind map? Okay.
Yeah, mine.
All right. So I need to share that. You can see a diagram now?
Yeah.
Right. So, are you guys familiar with this concept?
No, not gonna lie.
No. Okay, great. Perfect. So, in order of significance in priority in terms of achieving fat loss or body recomposition. And so whenever we're recomping, there's always an element of fat loss, or at least maintaining body fat levels while that's going on. And so the most important factor that has the biggest influence over all of that process is the bottom big block down there, energy balance. And so basically, energy balance refers to the balance of energy that you consume through via calories through the food that you eat, weighed up against the energy that you burn through all of the activity and training and physiological functions that your body needs to keep it alive. So that's the concept of energy balance. And essentially, fat loss cannot occur if you are consuming more energy than you are expending. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the key concept. So in order for recomposition to happen, or weight loss or fat loss to happen, there has to be a deficit in energy. And so we need to be expending more energy through training, through life, through existence, than we are consuming through the foods that we eat. And so in order to achieve that, you need to either eat less food, increase energy expenditure, or a combination of the two. And so when I'm explaining this concept to a client, I'll say what I've said then about the concept of energy balance, and I'll refer to fat mass or body fat as essentially stored energy. And so that we need to work with that individual on their nutrition and their training to create a deficit of energy so that their body is forced to tap into its stored energy reserves and start burning fat mass. And the reason why this is at the base of this diagram and is the most important factor is that it's the key principle that underpins fat loss. So if the energy balance is not in a deficit, the fat loss just won't happen. Yeah. Okay. And so that means that on paper, someone could consume McDonald's and thick shakes and cakes and pastries and whatever, and as long as they were expending more energy than the horrific food that they're consuming, they could still lose fat. So this is why it's the most important thing on top of macronutrients and micronutrients and meal timing and supplements, because it's
Question.
Yes, mate.
So like they can eat like Macca's or whatever, say like they're still in a deficit, they're just eating like shit.
Mm-hmm.
They're still going to lose weight, but that's the only thing that's going to affect is like their performance.
Yeah, so their performance, their overall health.
Yeah, that's it, obviously, yeah.
Yeah, all that kind of stuff. It's probably pretty hard to hit a protein target if you were consuming all your energy through those sorts of foods as well.
Yeah.
So it's it's not a strategy for fat loss or body composition at all, but but it highlights the principle. So it's kind of like the if it fits in your macros approach. So here's your allotted amount of calories for the day. Eat this much protein, and then make it up with sweets and sugars or whatever you want, as long as it fits in your macros.
Yeah.
So that's that principle. It's not one that I follow or implement with my clients. I know that's not what you guys do, but having the concept in place is there, because some clients that just can't help themselves from eating bad things. Like if you can get that through their head, then there's ways to give them a little bit of wiggle room.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So next on the list of priorities is macronutrients. So that's the macronutrients: protein, carbohydrates, fats, and alcohol. So what is the ratio of macros that make up those total calories we're giving them for their energy? And obviously the most important one is protein, and that's what we'll be looking at today. But so the second most important factor, once you've got energy balance sorted out, is to have the right distribution of macronutrients for the client and their goal.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any questions on that?
Nah, that's
No.
pretty good.
All good. So next one down, less important than macronutrients in terms of fat loss and body recomposition, not necessarily overall health, is micronutrients. So the actual quality of the foods that they're consuming.
Yeah.
So Same thing as the macas and thick shakes example. Like the micronutrient density of those sorts of foods is very poor. Nothing like eating whole foods, animal proteins, vegetables, and starches and stuff like that. But you can, so it's optimal to consume those foods, but not necessary for fat loss to occur. So that's why it's the third one on the list. Now, if health was your primary goal, then you could argue that micronutrients would be first. You could put that down to the bottom of the pyramid and say that's the most important thing for health is to eat the healthiest foods. It'd be a very close tie between first and second between energy balance and healthy foods. Like if you're eating heaps of healthy foods, but you're consuming a ton of calories, still going to put on fat mass. And if you're putting on large amounts of fat mass, then the downstream cascade of negative health impacts from that would probably outweigh the fact that you're eating lots of good food. So it's a fine one between energy balance and micronutrients.
So
But
in saying that though, so you know how you said, of course, no matter the quality of food, at the end of the day, they're going to be in a deficit. But then say, let's say the quality of food isn't good. Not only is their health at risk, what else would be at risk? Obviously, their performance in the gym and how they're feeling day by day.
yeah,
You feel
yeah,
like you having apples and then having this and having that, but you're still in a deficit. You might still lose weight. But I think, yeah, like you said, does then depend on the client's goals. If it's just cool, I just want to be in deficit and lose, then they have that leeway of their quality of food doesn't have to be that perfect.
they've got that
Right?
little bit of leeway.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you're right. Like it would probably, if they
I
were
wouldn't
training,
recommend it.
no, you wouldn't recommend it. And if they
Yeah.
were training, they would probably come up against a wall at a certain point where their performance couldn't go any higher because the quality of nutrition they have is just not enough to support the performance they want to have.
Yeah.
And so so performance would drop. Their general health on a longer term time scale would suffer. Probably the first thing they'd notice would be their digestion would be off and inflamed. Their general levels of inflammation would be higher, so joint pain, skin rashes, little allergies and histamine responses, all that kind of stuff could happen. Brain fog, declined cognitive function. So yeah, heaps of bad things would come from that. And like I was saying before, so if you say you had a super clean all whole foods diet, but you just were eating, just drenching everything in olive oil and eating a ton of fat and heaps of carbs and heaps of rice and everything, and you started to put on weight. If you're accumulating lots of fat mass, even though you're eating super clean, full organic, great foods, I mean you're getting lots of nutrients, but the process of actually putting on large amounts of fat mass is not good for health long term. So so that's why energy balance is still super important. And the first thing that I address with clients is that. And when we go through their initial consultation and I do the daily existence checklist, what time do you get up? What's the first thing that goes into your mouth? What do you do next? What's meal one? What time do you have it? Do you snack? Meal two? What are you doing? Snack, lunch? I get everything written down. And then I say, okay, this is all the energy balance that we have. This is what we're working with. So we need to, if your goal is fat loss or recomp, we need to create a little deficit in energy. We need to get your training and get more energy expenditure happening. And we just got to make sure from a macronutrient perspective that we have enough protein. And then I'll look at that piece of paper and I'll sort of just do an eyeball. Okay, meal one, you're having some muesli and yogurt, maybe you're getting sort of 10 or 15 grams there. Lunch, you're having a chicken sandwich, maybe you get 15 grams of protein on that one. If there's a slice of cheese, maybe 20. So I'll do a rough sort of eyeball calculation of how much protein it looks like they're having. And when we go through protein, we'll look at the requirements and everything. I'll do a quick sum and say, okay, this is what I think you're eating. These are the numbers you should be eating. So if we do nothing else, we just need to get the energy balance in place and we need to get you eating enough protein. And we've ticked off the first two rungs of the pyramid, and that's kind of over half the pyramid in terms of the impact that would have on their fat loss. Yeah. And then obviously I want them to eat better foods, and that might take a bit more time for them to implement that and all kinds of stuff, but that's not as important as getting the energy balance and the protein target hit. So nutrient timing or meal timing is less important still. So for a general fat loss client, or someone just looking to drop weight, assuming the energy balance is in place and the macronutrients are good and the food quality is reasonable, it doesn't really matter that much when they're actually eating their food. So if whether they, over that 24-hour period of a day, whether they eat all their calories in one big meal at the end of the day or spread them out throughout, 6 meals, all those calories, the same macros spread out 6 times over the day, there's, at the end of it, in terms of just purely fat loss, there's not a huge amount of difference that they're going to get from meal timing.
I thought I've always said to clients I definitely wouldn't recommend eating to the end of the day and leaving their calories at the end. Would you say that's wrong?
No, so I wouldn't recommend that either.
Okay.
So unless it was a specific a fasting approach, if they were doing that sort of intermittent fasting kind of thing, and they store all their calories for the end of the day, and there are health benefits for doing that. But usually the people who are doing that have actually put a bit of thought into their nutrition. They've figured out their calories and macros. They're making healthier food choices, and they're choosing to do that for the benefits of the fasting period. So, and lots of people do that, and it's successful. And there are plenty of athletes, lots of mixed martial arts athletes take that sort of approach. For whatever reason, it's kind of people find it easier to drop weight in that environment because you get used to the actual fasting period, and there's only so many calories you can consume in one sitting, and it's quite satiating to eat that much food at night time, and then be done with it and get up the next day and get used to the process of fasting. But it's not something that I do with my clients. But it's just to show the example that even if you think about it bigger picture, like a 7-day period, and you had all the food that you ate in a 7-day period and you put it all out on a table, if you ate all of that food on the first day, and then, this is an extreme example, but ate all that food on the first day and then waited 7 days, or ate that food evenly distributed over the 7-day period, if it's all exactly the same, you're going to end up with the same scale weight, like it'll fluctuate throughout the week, but at the end of it all, everything ends up going to where it needs to be. Yeah.
Makes sense, yeah.
Now, it's not optimal. If it's optimal, if you're thinking about nutrient timing and it's for body recomposition and it's someone who's training hard and they want to maximize their muscle gain, or someone who's new to the gym, so they're going to get that little period of time where they can actually build muscle and burn fat at the same time. They get that little honeymoon sweet spot. There's lots of protein synthesis going on, lots of need to recover in between workouts. And for that, you want a nice steady stream of amino acids and nutrients coming through the gut into the bloodstream to support recovery as much as you can throughout that period of the day. So that's when meal timing, you'd like to spread even meals out across the day and give them 3 or 4 meals or 4 or 5 meals or whatever it is in the day. And certainly if it's hypertrophy, if you have to build as much muscle as possible, then you want to have amino acids available in the bloodstream as frequently as possible. So that's when timing becomes more important. So as your goal gets more specific, and as the athlete gets better and they have more specific goals, whatever it is, nutrient timing becomes more important. So all of these things on the pyramid play their role, and in a perfect nutrition plan for someone who wants optimal results, you want to get everything right. But what this is demonstrating is just the minimum effective thing you need to do to achieve fat loss. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So supplements, that's the icing on the cake. So if they've got their energy balance spot on, their macronutrients are well, they've got adequate protein, good carbohydrates to support training, enough fat to keep them healthy, they're all eating good whole foods, so all the food quality is great. They've got their meals perfectly timed so that they're not too hungry when they're training, and they're well fed around the training window, and they can have enough food during the day to support recovery and cognitive function, all that kind of stuff. Meal timing's perfect. Then, that's when you can bring in some supplements or look to get more exotic, because all the fundamental boxes have been ticked along the way, and, for whatever benefits supplements have, and they do have in them, when used appropriately. In fact, I don't think that I don't think that much about supplements. And when clients ask me about supplements, like, oh yeah, a bit of this, bit of that. Then I think about all the supplements that I actually take, and I realize that I'm fucking swallowing pills and things and trying out stuff, all the time. So I'm always playing around with it, but it's not an essential thing for to get great results with clients.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So with that basic pyramid in mind, and that we have an understanding of energy balance, the next thing is the macronutrients. So we'll look at the most important macronutrient, which is protein, and that'll be the focus for today. So I'll stop that share and go back to the mind map. You guys see the mind map?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, what is protein?
Chicken. No, I'm joking.
Amino acids.
Yeah. Well, actually, I was going to actually ask all of you to give your answer to that question, because when I looked at that question, I was like, okay, Mick, what is protein? How would I write the answer to that?
Yeah. When he
I
asked, I was like stuck in the chair. I was like, how do I answer?
Yeah. The more you think about it, like it can be really simple, but the more you think about it, there's actually a lot of ways to answer that question.
Yeah.
What would you say, Bailey?
Well, the first answer I gave Mick is what it does. So what it does to the body. He's like, no, but what is it? And I was like, huh? And he's like, and I'm like, oh, and then I broke it down. I'm like, oh, okay, it's amino acids. And he's like, yeah, okay, better. And then he's asking how many amino acids, which I think is 11. 11?
Well, there's essential and
Essential.
non-essential.
Yeah.
So, and there's probably 10 or 11 in each of those categories. There might even be more.
Yeah, okay.
But
Okay.
yeah, a quick Google search would find that answer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Soph, how would you answer that question?
Well, this is what Jordan's been getting me to research.
Mhm.
So, and when I because I searched it up kind of thing, because I honestly had no clue when he asked me,
Yeah.
and it was like on a website it just said it's like a breakdown of amino acids,
Yeah. Yeah. So,
but I don't know how accurate that was.
well, that's accurate. And like before, because the other way you can answer, that question the way that Josh answered it, chicken. Like,
Yeah.
it's like, well, do you want the answer of of dietary protein, the protein that we eat, or the protein that we're actually made of?
Yeah, okay.
Because the human organism is essentially a big functioning mass of proteins, which have all been made up of sequences of amino acids.
Yeah.
So what I did, because I thought it was such an interesting question, I just Googled what is protein, and then went to the first answer, and this is what I got: a molecule, protein, a molecule made up of amino acids. Proteins are needed for the body to function properly. They are the basis of body structures such as skin and hair, and other substances such as enzymes, cytokines, antibodies, and hormones. So before we've even...
What's cytokines?
Cytokines are immune system cells, I think. So your whole immune system sort of functions on the creation of proteins, and so cytokines, I think, are protein structures within the immune system.
Okay.
So pretty much enzymes are components that fuel chemical reactions within the body, and so there's trillions of little chemical reactions going on to perform every function. As your blood circulates, as you start training, for instance, and your stress hormones start to elevate and get produced, a lot of that's happening off the back of enzymatic functions. The stress hormones go out, they start circulating through the bloodstream. They'll go to a fat cell or a muscle cell or a cell in the body to release some energy, some lipids or some sugars or some carbohydrates into the bloodstream. And all of those, every step of that little process will require chemical reactions that go on, which are enzymes are a part of all of those reactions, and the enzymes themselves are made up of proteins.
Yeah.
And the thing that's making up the proteins is the amino acids. So you don't need to be deeply bogged down in any of that kind of stuff. It was just interesting that that is the definition that Google gives, and they're not even talking about building muscle or repairing tissue that much in that aspect, which is kind of what we're more interested in. But that highlights how important protein actually is to the organism, despite the fact that we're training. And really,
Yeah, I didn't know that protein was in skin and hair as well. That's interesting.
yeah, skin, hair, nails, everything. Yeah, yeah.
Everything.
And so in the hierarchy of functions that the body would use protein for, repairing muscle tissue is actually pretty low down the chain of events, like supporting your immune system and creating digestive enzymes to break down food, building antibody responses in the face of a virus. All of the hormones that are circulating in your body are built on proteins. Proteins form substances that your liver uses to attach to toxins as it filters your blood to clean it. So proteins are doing all these things all around the body, and all of those things are more important than building and repairing muscle tissue. And so this is why having the adequate amount of protein, or an adequate amount, or even a surplus of protein, is a good thing when we're chasing muscle mass or body recomposition, is because we want to make sure we have a surplus of protein to service all of the functions that the body needs to take care of on a physiological perspective, and then have the adequate amount left over to repair muscle tissue.
Yeah.
Yeah, making sense?
Yeah, making sense.
Okay.
So you say you wouldn't have enough protein for the individual's body weight. Repairing muscle tissues at the bottom of the chain.
Maybe not I don't know what would be at the very bottom, but it's not as high up as some of those other critical functions. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And so the body, in the face of starvation or something like that, where there's no nutrition coming in for a period of time, the body will break down muscle tissue to provide amino acids, so break down proteins to provide amino acids to then get recirculated into higher up the hierarchy of functions that the body needs. Yeah. And so it's my experience of clients that have that undereat with protein when they're training is they get to a certain point where they're just fucking tired and they're sore and they get injured and their performance plateaus, and it just doesn't go any further, and they're kind of in, like, they're putting themselves in a bit of a survival hole.
Yeah.
And I've seen it happen a few times, because I was like, well, what would really happen if you just didn't eat any protein and you kept training? What happens is you just can't keep training.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What happens if you eat too much protein? I know it affects like the liver and stuff, but I don't know exactly how, or like what the major effects of eating too much protein is.
Not too much, man. Like if there's an existing kidney issue or something like that, then processing excess protein and having excess nitrogen can result in like elevated urea levels. So the byproducts of trying to break it all down can start to cause issues. But it's kind of like overeating in general. Too much fat, too much sugar, too much protein. The consequence of that is that you have a surplus of energy, and that energy has to be stored somewhere. And a great place to store energy is fat mass. So there's no unless the individual has compromised ability to actually process proteins. In general, if you're overeating protein, there's no real negative health effects specifically from the protein.
Okay, good. I can tell my mum that now.
She's worried about how much protein you eat?
Yeah, like she would always be going on like, oh, too much protein's not good for you. I'm like, yeah, well, first of all, I'm not eating too much. But like for her, I'm eating too much because obviously she sort of doesn't eat as much as what I would be eating. But yeah, she would always go on about like, yeah, too much protein's not good for you, blah, blah, blah. And then I didn't have an actual like reason, a proper reason like that to tell her. I'd be like, no, you don't know what you're going on about.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's like, you know, too much of anything. The key point that you made was that you're not eating too much. That's all you need to tell her. You can say, once we go down to the numbers and start looking at what ranges we prescribe for people, you can say, okay, Mum, the science says that I need between 1.6 and 3 grams or 4 grams of protein per kilo of body weight to support my strength training, and that's how much I'm eating. So there you go.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
And then tell her that you love her and give her a hug.
Yeah, we'll do.
Yeah.
I'll say this is Tommy's hug.
Yeah. Give her a hug. So where was I? Okay. Well, so
You finished off with just that too much of everything.
yeah, too much of anything causes an issue. But yeah. Overeating protein is not a problem that really any of our clients have.
Cool.
Yeah. But a lot of them will actually ask that question. Some of them might actually ask you, say, "Oh, that's a lot of protein. You want me to eat?" And so that it's good to be able to answer those questions. And the other thing is they don't necessarily have to start with the optimal, with the end range that they might be eating. Because when they start training, they're just kind of getting their head around it. They're more like unathletic population who needs less protein than advanced training population who needs, a much larger amount to support that. But as their training capacity builds and their numbers start going up and they start getting stronger, then they'll need to increase their protein as they go. Okay, so just for the more technical grounding of understanding, so we know that protein is made up of amino acids, which is made up of amino acids are made up of nitrogen. I've just got nitrogen here because you might hear podcasts and things with scientists or super qualified PhD people in the fitness world or the nutrition world, and when they talk about protein, quite often they talk about it as nitrogen, and they talk about positive nitrogen balance and all that kind of stuff. So nitrogen is an essential element for all forms of life and is the structural component of amino acids, which form animal and human tissues, enzymes, and hormones. So in the same way that the amino acids are the building blocks of a protein, nitrogen is the element, so from the actual elemental table, that is the key thing that makes up the actual amino acids that make up the protein.
Cool. I'm not gonna lie, I thought nitrogen was just like the really cold, like ice thing. You know what I mean? So,
yeah. I mean that would still be the same element, maybe in a liquid or frozen form, but I don't think you're necessarily wrong with that. Don't quit. Yeah. I'm stepping out of my wheelhouse here, but I think nitrogen is nitrogen on the elemental table, and however it gets itself into amino acids, it manages to do it.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. I don't know how it turns into that, but yeah, mad.
Yeah. Yeah. And so you'll hear people talk about positive nitrogen balance, and that just means that the body is taking on more protein than it's breaking down. And so I just put the nitrogen definition in there just so that if you hear that in a conversation around nutrition, it's referring to protein. That's kind of how the scientists speak about protein. Okay, so let's have a look at why it is important in the body. So we've kind of been through this. I've got another diagram. Let me share this. What can you guys see?
Yeah, diagram.
Of proteins provide many essential functions in the body?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So these are all the stuff that we actually spoke about. So the digestive enzymes help to facilitate chemical reactions. So proteins form the enzymes. Antibody for the immune system in the middle there. Support muscle contraction and movement. Moves essential molecules around the body. So there are proteins that get made in the bloodstream to attach to other things that the blood wants to transport around the body, and they're used for that kind of stuff. support the regulation and expression of DNA and RNA. So that's how it actually all. That's kind of how it all happens. So the DNA within a cell has a code to create a certain protein. Maybe it's a muscle protein, a contractile protein. Maybe it's a protein for your fingernail or your hair, whatever it is. So a cell in that part of the body will have a DNA code to create that kind of protein, send that message out to via RNA. So messenger RNA takes that code out into the cell, and a ribosome, which is like a little cellular robot which sort of floats around in the cell, kind of follows the code and grabs amino acids to actually put it together and create the physical construction of the protein. And that protein will then get expressed on the surface of the cell and taken to, do whatever job it needs to do. And I'm making an absolute murder of that description. Like a scientist would go, well, yeah, but there's this, and this, and this. It's super, super detailed. But it's just interesting to know that when you're recovering from a workout and your muscles are actually growing and being repaired, there's actually little physical things like chemical reactions and stuff going on to actually build that fiber. It's kind of crazy. And I think at a certain level, they don't really know exactly what's going on. Yeah. So on top of all of those reasons, then if we know that contractile tissue, muscle tissue, is made of proteins, and that when we lift weights and apply resistance to a muscle through a range of motion, micro tears and breakdown of tissue is occurring, then that fiber and that tissue needs to be repaired. And so we need to supply the raw materials, the amino acids, to conduct that repair. So we would eat a chicken breast, and that would get digested and broken down by enzymes in the gut, broken down into amino acids. The amino acids would get into the bloodstream and circulate, and the areas of the body of muscle tissue that needed to be repaired, it would start going towards the reconstruction of more muscle tissue. And if you're in a deficit of energy and a deficit of protein, and you're training, and one day you train chest and back, and the next day you train legs. On the Wednesday, you say you did chest and back Monday, legs Tuesday. The body's trying to repair. If there's not enough protein, like the protein that it gets in on the Monday, it'll start recovering chest and back. Then you'll train legs, and then the legs become more of a priority. So all the protein goes to the legs, and then maybe if everything else is recovered and you just train, it might break down tissue from one part of the body, say the bicep or the tricep that hasn't been worked, and use those amino acids to repair the tissue in the legs. So there's a concept of protein redistribution that can occur as well if there's not adequate protein and calories to support the actual process of muscle growth.
Damn, I didn't know that. Okay, cool.
But yeah, pretty much if you're not eating enough protein and you're training certain muscle groups on a different day, it will take the protein from a different muscle group to support the other one.
Yeah.
Damn, make sure we train every muscle, huh?
Yeah.
Well, that's right, and it's also
legs, man.
Yeah, I mean, it's also the reason that you might, if a bodybuilder, for instance, say like a what are the board short guys, like a what's that category called? Physique. Yeah. So say a physique athlete, they don't need great quads and hammies and glutes, like enough to fill out the shorts or whatever. But upper body is prized, and and delts and all that kind of stuff. So they might not even train their legs very hard if they've got good leg genetics and they need a big upper body. Just don't train legs, train the upper body, and all of the priority, the growth and the muscle protein synthesis just occurs in the upper body, and that's what grows. And of course, there's we all have a sort of genetic potential, a genetic cap of how much muscle our frame can actually hold.
Yeah.
It's not like we can just keep training and keep eating and just keep growing forever. We hit that plateau, and so if you're unless you're on roids, and even then, I guess that taps out how many drugs can you tolerate, for how long, in what quantities, and do all those other things. Like, it's the guys that get there are they're genetic freaks on all levels, not just great genetic potential to grow, great insertion points and muscles and everything, but they've got great drug tolerance, or they're super responders. They respond really well to small amounts of drugs, or they're really good at taking huge amounts of drugs. It's like if we all sat around and drank 10 beers, we might have a happy drunk, an angry drunk. Someone might pass out. Every drug affects everyone in a different way. It's the same with performance enhancing drugs and athletes and all that sort of stuff as well.
Makes sense.
Yeah. Okay, so where are we? 4:15. So we're almost there. Let me go back to the.
Do you have work, Josh?
Yeah, I was about to say I totally lost track. This was interesting.
All right, have you got to go right now?
Yeah, I got to just get ready and then.
Okay.
But I want to wait. I'll quickly do this bit. Yeah.
We'll just I'll get through it, because this is actually, well, there might be questions about this, but just so you know the ranges. So the extremes. So the minimum amount of protein. So the summary of a lot of the science that have looked at protein requirements for athletic population. So not sedentary general population, but people who are playing sports, lifting weights, that kind of stuff, is somewhere between 1.2 and 1.6 times their body weight in kilograms. So if you're a 70 kilo female, the minimum, and I always go the top end of that, the 1.6. So I'll tell my client. What's that, mate?
Could that high range of 1.6 go higher?
No, so this is the minimum amount.
Okay.
This is the minimum amount to cover all of those physiological functions, all the immune system, the enzymes and everything, plus recover from lots of physical activity.
Yeah.
So the minimum amount would be 1.6 times your kilo. So if you're 70 kilo, 70 times 1.6 is 112 grams of protein.
Yeah.
Which is very little.
Yeah.
So the top amount that I have heard of people really doing, like Poliquin used to talk about giving guys 4 grams of protein per kilo of body weight. So if that 70 kilo guy or female was to have the top end, 4 times 70 would be 280.
Damn.
So which is quite a lot.
Mm.
And so there are different. So there's your minimum and your maximum. Most of the guys that we're working with, generally I'm looking at between 2 to 3 grams times their scale weight in kilograms. So 70 times 2, 140. 70 times 2.5, 175. 70 times 3, 210. So those are the sort of the numbers that I'm working on. Mm. So there's a fair bit more we could talk about, the scenarios when you would give lower and higher and what would dictate all of that. Like, is that useful to you guys?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Josh, do you want to? So you've got to go now.
I can go at what's the time? I can go at 20.
At 20. Okay, so like 2 minutes. So what do you reckon? Should we wrap it here and then come back next week and go through the different scenarios as to when you would do the minimum, closer to the minimum or close to the maximum, that kind of stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah, I reckon that'll be good.
Yeah. We'll do that.
It would be just depending on the client, like in the individual. Hey,
that has a lot.
Their goals and their energy expenditure and blah 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 blah.
Correct. Yeah. That has a lot to do with it. But are those like what numbers are you guys sort of instructed to work with your clients?
1.5 to around 2.2.
Yeah. Okay. That's
Is
good.
that the minimum?
Around there.
Yeah.
Last time Jordan just said minimum 1.8 to 3.2.
Okay.
Yeah. That's a nice healthy range. So
Yeah.
if we say the MPH range is 1.8 to 3.2, those will be the ranges that we'll work with, and we'll talk about different scenarios as to who would get more and when and where, and how that actually fits in, and what the role would be in a deficit of energy or a surplus of energy, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Cool.
Cool.
All right, guys, you're all legends. Let me know if there's any questions or anything, and we'll pick it up again next week.
Awesome.
Yes.
Thanks,
Awesome.
mate.
All right, guys, have a good holiday, mate.
Thanks, mate. Appreciate it.
Good.
And you make
Enjoy
sure
the
you
rest of your
go next
weekend,
week.
Yeah, man, I will. See you, Soph. Take it easy.
See ya.
mate.
Bye. See you, Josh.
Cheers.
Yeah. Bye.